All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's presentation as part of the Sustainability Speakers Series. My name is Mark Klapach-Mathias, and I'm here representing two of the hosting organizations tonight, including the UW River Falls Sustainability Office and Hope for Earth. I also want to acknowledge and thank the River Falls Public Library and the Library Foundation for their ongoing support in making events like this a possibility. Typically, our speaker series events happen at the River Falls Public Library, but as you may know, they're going through a remodel this year. So we are pivoting to the historic North Hall Auditorium. If you are interested in supporting the upgrades at the library, you can find more information on the Renew and Inspire Capital Campaign and Building Project on the River Falls Public Library website. Before I introduce our presenter tonight, I want to share with you the next event in the Sustainability Speakers Series. Thursday, November 6th at 6:30, here once again in the North Hall Auditorium, will feature a Sustainable Buildings panel. As of right now, there are plans to include Habitat for Humanity, Carpenter Nature Center, and Allison Page, who is involved in the sustainability components of Western Wisconsin Health. More details will be available in the coming weeks, so you can keep an eye on the River Falls Public Library website for their event, or through the UWRF Sustainability Office through my orgs here on campus. The campus event calendar will get it posted there as well. Without further ado, I would like to introduce tonight's presenter. Monica started her career as an accountant, but was fortunate to spend over 22 years in the philanthropic community, including 16 years at Headwaters Foundation for Justice. In 2015, Monica decided to make a major career change and has taken on many consulting opportunities and followed her passion for birding and bird photography. Monica is the founder and executive director of the Urban Bird Collective that provides welcoming and inclusive spaces for BIPOC and LGBT community to bird in the Twin Cities, and additionally supports various conservation efforts with key partners. Monica believes in community service and has served on many boards and committees for over 25 years, and currently volunteers with her local district council, the West Side Community Organization, and serves on the board of the St. Paul Bird Alliance, Hawk Ridge based in Duluth, and the Great River Passage. Monica is a Latina who believes that it is critical to work across issues that affect us all and to work for systems change at the same time. Monica's passions include environmental, women's, people of color, and LGBT issues. She feels extremely fortunate to pursue her passions for both people and the birds. Let's welcome Monica.
Right. Well, thank you. Let me just start with this. So this is a cedar waxwing. I'm almost 65 years old. And I started birding maybe about 25 years ago. One day, some friends of mine who were birders took me out, and on that one day alone, I saw almost 60 different species of birds, and the cedar waxwing was one of them. And I was just like blown away. And I did not know these birds were here. Changed my life. I became obsessed, but I call the cedar waxwing my spark bird. So that's what got me started into birding. Today, we're going to talk about sort of my project that I worked on around climate threatened and endangered birds, my journey around sustainability, and then that eventually led me to creating the Urban Bird Collective. So like I said, I started out as an accountant. I thought that I was going to do the books for a little nonprofit and be very happy about it. And what happened was I ended up going into corporate to pay my student loans, spent about 11 years as an accountant in corporate America. And while I was in corporate, I started working on diversity issues within the corporation. I started working on diversity and LGBT issues at St. Paul Companies. And then eventually I got moved into the community affairs, which was the foundation of the company. And so that was my sort of philanthropic foot in the door. And then from there, I went to Headwaters Foundation for Justice and was there for 16 years. So I should say, while I was at Headwaters, I started working with organizations that were working on environmental justice. One of the things that we found out was we wanted to fund environmental groups that were BIPOC led And what we found out was there weren't organizations that were specifically leading environmental work that were BIPOC led. What was happening is that BIPOC organizations were working on environmental issues as part of their work. And so I started meeting these organizations. And for me, as part of my introduction, I'm all about community service. But what happened was I was outside my community. I went other places to do my work. But as I was, looking for these organizations that were doing environmental justice work, I found one in my own neighborhood. And I was just like, wow, okay, you're doing amazing work. Why did I not know about you? And at that same time, I started sort of digging into sort of the connections between climate change, peak oil, and sort of the financial downturn. And again, this was back in like 20, oh my God, was it 20? It was about 2010, maybe 2005. And as I got deeper into it, I got really depressed. I was like, holy shit, this is going to be bad. So I was trying to get out of the funk. So I saw all these organizations. I saw that they were doing great work. And one of the things that I decided was at that time was I can't affect all these huge things that are happening around the world or even in the United States, but I can impact things that are happening in my own community, and I can control what in my own neighborhood. And so I got involved with my organization. We worked on sustainability issues, and I got out of the funk. I did community organizing, and that's how I got into sort of the sustainability stuff. I will say we did. This will be a funny story and be quick. We did an energy workshop, and my mom lived with me for 30 years. And my mom loved to turn the heat up in the winter. And I would be like, you need to turn that down. And she's like, I'm cold. And I'm like, put a sweater on. And, I would fight with her every winter. But once I went to this workshop, and I said to my mom, I said, let's do this. If we can get the energy bill down to this, I'll give you a little rebate. Like, my mom didn't have a lot of money, so I was going to give her a $50 rebate. So she bit into it, and I was like, oh my God, I saved $250 a month. And I gave my mom $50 and I saved $200. And I invested that $200 every month into something else that was sustainable. So I create a little program for your kids. So I'm at Headwaters, and all I could think about was the birds. And what I decided was, I loved my job. I was program officer there. I got to work with community organizations, amazing community activists, but I knew that somebody else should be in my position. I'm going to go birding. And I thought that I could pay the bills with my birding and photography. That's not true. So I became a consultant and did lots of other jobs. And then I was very fortunate. Audubon National had heard about me and knew that I was passionate about the birds. I was doing photography, and that I was passionate about climate change. And so they offered me a project. And in Minnesota, there is 166 birds that are threatened or endangered by climate change. I should note that this was almost at least 15 years ago, right? By now, it's probably more. But when I was doing this project, there's 166. And they said, if you can get photos of 50 of those birds and do presentations, that would be awesome. Do presentations for about 300 people. And so when I sort of wrapped it up for them, I had over 100 photos, and I had already I talked about 3,000 people. And I'll talk to you a little bit about sort of my journey getting some of these photos. So when we talk about, what is climate threatened, stable, or endangered, these are the number of species that are affected. Climate stable is they're fine, and their habitat maybe is growing a little bit. Climate threatened is that it's moving, pretty quickly, and some birds are able to adapt, some are not. And then climate threatened is just they're losing their habitat. So, and we know why. There's forest fires. The climate change is increasing the likelihood of forest fires, flooding. Nothing is predicted. So, when I started this project, I became a consultant. And so while I had some time, I still had some jobs that I was doing. And so when I started this project, I had never seen an American avocet. So what I did was I took the list and I just started looking and seeing where the avocets or any of the birds on the list were. This one I actually found in a sewage treatment center. Birds love sewage treatment centers. And so I went there and had this beautiful American avocet. The scarlet tanager. I got this one actually by my neighborhood. It's Crosby Park. And again, some of these birds that as I started this project, I had never seen. These were lifers for me. This lesser yellowlegs, I love this photo because what it reminds me of is when I was doing this project, I thought I had to get everywhere as fast as I could. And so this was at Old Cedar Avenue Bridge, and I got there super early in the morning. And then I was thinking about the next place that I was going to go. And it was a beautiful morning. There was just like, it was so calm. Nobody was around. And I was enjoying the birds. And I'm just like, stop and enjoy this. Like you're getting paid to hang out with the birds. So this picture always reminds me of that time. Yellow-headed blackbirds. When I first started birding, when my friends took me out birding, they were more common back 25 years ago, and now they're not as common. I usually go to, it's called 140th Street Marsh or 180th Street Marsh to get yellow-headed blackbirds close to the cities. But I will also go to, I always think about it as in the spring, March, April, I'm going to the migration. So I go to Western Minnesota in that time because I can't wait for the birds to come to me. So I go to Western Minnesota, and when I go there, the yellow-headed blackbirds are everywhere. This is a white-faced ibis. And one of the jobs that I had, I was working at a bike shop, and I was checking the bird listings. This is prior to like the major internet, but anyway, the bird listings were out there, and it said this white-faced ibis was at 180th Street Marsh, which is about 30 minutes from my house or from work. And so I just, it was lunchtime, and I looked at my coworker, and I'm like, I'm going to go get this bird. I'd never seen it before. I grabbed my camera from my house, and I went to 180th Street Marsh. And just as I got there, it flew in, and I was able to get this photo. This is a bobolink, and many of the birds on the climate threatened and endangered lists are grassland birds. And so the bobolink is one of them. They're losing their habitat more and more. If I really, really want to go see one, I will go to Western Minnesota. I will go to a place called the North Ottawa Impoundment. And then another place that I just found them this spring was Myrie Big Lake State Park. Again, another grassland bird is the Henslow sparrow. Very hard to find. This one was at Frontenac State Park. And then another place that they are found is near Stillwater at Bellwyn Conservancy. Black-crowned night heron. So on my little travels, I was able to find, oh, I'm trying not to go too far. I found this black-crowned night heron in a little teeny tiny park in, oh my gosh, Fergus Falls. So now every 4th of July, around that time, I go to Fergus Falls to get black-crowned night herons. And they always have babies at that time of year. So I'm always looking for the babies there. The American kestrels. So I work with an organization, the St. Paul Bird Alliance, and we have been doing the kestrel watch project for over 20 years. Kestrels are really declining. They're losing their habitat as well. And we have probably 14 stations that we're monitoring. One, if monitoring the birds that are being hatched, did they make it? Are they mating? All of those things, and it's varied in success. They really need sort of open space to do their hunting, and it's a bird that we're really trying to keep an eye on. This is an American bittern. I have people that take me out, or I should say I have people that ask me to take them out on birding trips. And one day, I always say to people, like when we're going to these certain parks, I'm like, if we just, tiptoe really quiet and turn the corner, we might see an American bittern. And usually we don't. But one day we tiptoed around the corner and I'm like, holy shit, there's an American bittern. So it was great. It was her birthday. So it was really fun to find that. This is a berry thrush. So you don't see them very often here in Minnesota. But it was on the list, and a berry thrush will come to Minnesota. Crazy, it comes in the winter. It sometimes people think it comes off the course or whatever, but I got this in Stillwater, Minnesota, in December. There were 2 of them, but every year there's a report of berry thrushes somewhere in Minnesota. You're like, what? Snowy owls. Owls in general are threatened, and snowy owls come down from Canada in the winter. And this actual photo was taken many, many, many years ago, probably 20 years ago. And it was a year that there was an eruption. So there were probably at least 1,000, if not 1,500 snowy owls that came into close to the Twin Cities. And on this day that I got this owl, there were 6 other ones that were just hanging out with it. So there was a ton of snow. It was 20 below on that day. And so every now and then you'll get an eruption of owls. Different types of owls will have different types of eruptions. The other thing about snowy owls is if I want to see one, I usually go out to the Minneapolis airport. So snowy owls want open space, and they're always at the Minneapolis airport. And what happens a lot of times is that the airport, of course, they see all the birders out there looking at the owls, and they're like, oh, the snowies must be back. And so a lot of times they capture them and release them somewhere else because they don't want them to strike the planes. And then there's ducks. So a lot of ducks, because of the water, they're on the list, climate endangered or threatened. These are a pair of red-headed ducks, and the males are always the most colorful. And the females in a lot of species look very, very similar. And so for people who are new birders, what I usually tell them is pay attention to who the boy that they're hanging around, and then it'll be the girl. But you just always still have to check too. So this is the red-headed duck. This is a hooded merganser. Very fun bird, and the babies are super cute because they have that hood and they're just little. These are northern shovelers, and they get their name because their bill is super wide, climate endangered, very fun bird, very colorful bird to see. These are red-breasted mergansers, and as you can see, they're trying to court the girl, and she's not paying attention. But they do a crazy dance in the spring for the girls. When I go out looking for ducks, I'm in Wisconsin. I forget that I'm in Wisconsin now. But when I try to go in Minnesota, I go around the chain of lakes. So Betty-Makaska, Lake of the Isles, Harriet, to see the ducks. So this is a horned grebe. So there's lots of different types of grebes. When I first started birding, my friends would say, we'd see like 50 horned grebes. And they would say, you have to check every horned grebe. And you did that because every now and then you would get lucky and get a eared grebe. And the one-eared grebe would be hanging around with these horned grebes. I got this one at Coon Rapids Dam. And on that day, I got the eared grebe, horned grebe, western grebe, and a pied-billed grebe. They were all just hanging out there. Warblers. So warblers are super small and very fast. And in Minnesota, they come through in the spring, and then they head up north, up into Duluth, North Shore area, and then into Canada. So when I was doing this project, it's the migration, and I'm as much as I can trying to get out to try to get the warblers. So, I knew a few of the hot spots. The golden-winged warbler is one of those warblers that is really in decline and losing ground. If I want to see a golden-winged warbler, I will go to Zaxton Bog, which is in Minnesota, and it's an international winter birding destination, but it's also a great summer destination. So, golden-winged warbler. This is a magnolia warbler. And in the spring, they have amazing colors. Right now in the fall, they lose all their colors. Most of them lose their colors, and then it's like, oh, what warbler is that? So this is a Wilson's warbler. Probably going to be named something different soon because it's they're changing the names from people to maybe something that's more descriptive, like the black-cap warbler. This is a Canada warbler. I love the necklace on the Canada warbler. And if I want to see a Canada warbler, I will go to Tetagooch State Park in Minnesota or Oberg Mountain. This is a hooded warbler. I always tell people when the birds look like I'm like so close to them, I am not. Like my camera, I'm zooming out. But this little hooded warbler looks like it's just looking me in the eye and like, what are you doing? This is a Cape May, another one that is pretty hard to find. I don't get them every spring. I maybe have seen them maybe 10 times in my years of birding. This is a black-throated blue, and when I started this project, I had this book by Bob Jensen, and what he did was he took every state park in Minnesota, and he identified 4 or 5 hotspots in each of those state parks. And so he noted that at Tetagooch State Park, not the main Tetagooch, but there's another Tetagooch, that black-throated blues love to be up in high elevations. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go try it. I'm going to, read what Bob said, and I'm going to go up that path. At the time, I had a yellow lab, and he was great. I took him off leash and, had put the leash behind my back, and we were climbing the mountain. And, then all of a sudden there were a lot of cliffs, and I'm like, okay, time to put the leash back on. I lost the leash. And I'm like, no, we're not. No. So I had to go back down and didn't find the leash and put him back, and then went back up and got the black-throated blue. One of the really more reliable places that I get a black-throated blue now is Oberg Mountain in Minnesota, and it's on the North Shore. What I love about Oberg Mountain is that the paths, you overlook a lot of the lakes, and like Lake Superior and some of the other small lakes that are around there. At Tetagooch, you're in more foresty area, and so it's harder to take really good pictures. Almost all of the migratory birds are threatened somewhere along their ranges, with only 9% of all migratory species protected year-round in their habitats. So they take a lot of chances traveling, and they travel thousands and thousands of miles. Some of the birds, it's crazy. They can go 1,000 miles without stopping. So the other thing that I like to do when you're birding, I like to hit the water, because you can get different vantage points. And so this is a hands-free. I can do some pedaling and have my camera there. So this is a Western grebe, and again, I'm starting this project, and I am working, and I heard that Western grebes were at this Lake Osakis, and it's up past, it's like Bemidji or Brainerd, and I thought, well, okay, I'm free on 4th of July. I'm going to go up there, not thinking that everybody else is free on the 4th of July. Lake Osakis is huge. I didn't know how huge it was. It's huge, and it was super windy, and I had my little kayak, and so I'm like, I'm here. So I just put in and started paddling around, and was able to find this Western grebe with little babies. There's 3 little babies that are riding on the back of it. I probably had to take 1,000 photos because I was bopping up and down, and maybe got like 10 good ones. This is a redneck grebe. So I told you there's a lot of different grebes. I was very lucky. A friend of mine, she knew I was doing this project, and she said, up at my cabin, we have redneck grebes. You should come up there. So I was able to go up there and go in a kayak. And again, I am nowhere close to these birds. Got in my kayak, took some photos, and got out of there. So American pelicans, we have one of the biggest populations of breeding white pelicans in the country. So white pelicans come here. In farther south, there's brown pelicans, but we have white pelicans. And again, just the different vantage point for my kayak, I really, really love. So the bald eagle has been making a big comeback, but we have to be diligent, because the things that endangered them before, pesticides, lead, are the things that continue to do that. And so we do have to keep an eye on them. I was in my kayak, and I was going on the river, and I saw him kind of just hanging over on the limb. So I thought, okay, I'm going to just paddle really quick, and I just glided under him and took that photo, and he's looking at me like, what are you doing? And I'm just thinking, just don't poop on me. This is a black tern. Again, one of those species that we're paying attention to. If I want to reliably see a black tern, I'll go to Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge. But I got this at a friend of mine, the friend who had the redneck grebes. They also had black terns on their lake. So after the spring migration, the birds are starting to head up to the North Shore, to Canada. So then I had to start going up there. So I went to go see some shorebirds. This is a ruddy turnstone. I went to not Hawk Ridge. I went to Duluth. So this is Park Point in Duluth to see the shorebirds. A dunlin, very cute, very small. And then at Hawk Ridge, so up in Duluth, is it's an international birding destination for raptors, passerines. Hundreds of thousands of birds are going through right now. It sort of starts in August, mid-August until, and like probably end of November. 200,000 birds will go through Hawk Ridge. So when I got this Broadwing, this is one of 500 that were flying around at the time. But I just pulled that one in. I'm one of those really bad drivers that I'm driving, and if I see something on the side of the road, I'm like, oh my God. And this peregrine falcon was sitting on the side of the road. And so I had to be careful, stop, and luckily had my camera and got out and got that. So again, the migration has gone through. I'm going up north now to get some more different types of warblers. And so in Bob Jensen's book, he talked about a couple different parks, but this park is called Judge J.R. Magny. And he said one of the hotspots was the parking lot. And I'm like, okay. So I got there super early in the morning. And all of a sudden, all I could hear was the birds. They were in the parking lot. And so I just pulled out a lawn chair and just enjoyed all the birds. So this black Berenian was there, the northern parula. There's this chestnut-sided warbler. Again, I'm going up a little later in the season. So the birds are already they've nested, they've had a first brood. And so this is a baby asking for some food. It was fun to watch. While I'm out, I don't just see the birds. So there's this porcupine up in a tree. And this one was at Zaxon Bog. So at first I was like, is it dead? And I'm like, I can't take a photo if it's dead. And then finally it opened its eyes. I'm like, okay, now I can take this photo. This black-billed magpie was one of my nemesis birds. So this is at Zaxon Bog, and I knew it was there. Every time I visited the bog, I usually visit the bog about 6 times a year. I see it, but I can't take a good photo. So this is like a couple of years. I'm like trying to get this black-billed magpie. And I finally got, I've been able, once I got that one, then I've been able to get a few more. It was my nemesis for a long time. Common redpoll. So a lot of species, especially the ones that are up north, are really dependent on the cones, the pine cones, and different types of food sources. And so every year there's a finch report that comes out, and it'll tell you if it's going to be a good year or a bad year. So for like common redpolls or purple finches, grosbeaks, it all depends on the food source, if they're going to be around or not. So again, an evening grosbeak. So these are all birds that come, I go and get them in the winter. So I'll go up to Zaxon Bog in the winter to see an evening grosbeak. This is a boreal chickadee. Very, very hard to find. Again, they come down in the winter. In the bog, there may be 4 boreal chickadees in a winter. They're super hard to find. But what's nice about Zaxon Bog is that there are particular places that they have set up. You can kind of see that there's like almost like peanut butter or lard on the bark. So they have feeding stations that will attract the birds. The northern hawk owl is another owl that comes down in the winter, and you can see it in the bog or up in Duluth. The great gray, Zaxon Bog is known for its great grays. So there will be more great grays in the winter, but the great grays are there all year round. Last winter, so end of 2024 and beginning of 2025 was an eruption year for great grays. And let me see if I put, nope, I didn't put, I might have one in here, but there were thousands of great grays that came down last winter. So in one day, I think I saw like 6 great grays along the North Shore. This again is at Zaxton Bog. These are black-backed woodpeckers. They're here all year round. Most of our woodpeckers stay here all year round. Yellow-bellied sapsuckers and northern flickers are probably the 2 that migrate the most. And then black-backed woodpeckers are in the bog out north. Pretty rare, pretty hard to find. This Connecticut warbler, I've only seen it twice in my life. It's at Zaxton Bog, but it goes super deep into the woods. And another one that's kind of declining in numbers. This is an American three-toed woodpecker. What's really hard is they look like blackback woodpeckers, except they have 3 toes. But a friend of mine, he knew I was doing this project, and he was in Tower, Minnesota, and he said a friend of his had black 3-toed woodpeckers in their yard. Now, your yard and their yard are probably very different. Like theirs are acres. And he said they will take 10 people to go see the woodpeckers. And he said, I'd love, come and see them. They said, you should bring snowshoes though, because it's going to be a trek. I didn't have snowshoes. It was 20 below and I was dressed super warm. And we went a long ways. I got very hot. I was dying until I saw the 3-toed woodpecker, which I quickly got a good photo and then said, oh my God, I got to go back. I didn't even bring water. I didn't bring food. But it was super fun to see that. This was another, I would say, another nemesis bird for me, red crossbills. It's kind of like because they just fly around, and you never know where they're going to be. I've seen them a few times, but the lighting has always been awful. But I was at Zaxton Bog, and they happened to show up at a feeder, and I was just lucky to get this. Short-eared owls. Like I said, most of the owls are, climate threatened or endangered. Short-eared owls are one of them. I have a new spot in Minnesota. It's called Keystone Wildlife Management Area that has short-eared owls. And so I just found it last year and hopefully they'll be back this year. Long-eared owls. Again, I've only seen this long-eared owls maybe 5 times in 25 years. And then, oh my gosh, I didn't change the name here. This is a boreal owl. And so I think there were 12 birds on my list of the 166 that I haven't gotten yet. So 12. And the boreal owl was one of them. And the boreal owl comes to Minnesota maybe in bigger numbers every 5 years. But on those years, I just could never find it. They're super small. They're really small. And so I was out of luck. But last year, when the great grays had an eruption, the boreal owls they came in by the thousands. And I just, I'm dying because I'm here in the Twin Cities. I'm working, and I see all the photos of everybody seeing the boreal owl except me. But then a friend of mine, we grabbed a couple people and we said, let's just go try to find them. So we hopped in the car, went up to Duluth, and got to see 3 of them in that one day. So it was super fun. It was a lifer for me. I'd never seen a boreal owl. And then the common loon. It's the Minnesota state bird. And it is an endangered species, one, because it dives really deep to get its food. And that's where the lead and the mercury go. And so they're eating that, and it's affecting their breeding populations. So they're very cute. So what's left on my list? I had a couple birds that I saw this year. I got a cinnamon teal that I got to check off my list. But the chestnut colored longspur, it is, like I said, I've been working on this project for a really long time, and there are not very many sightings of that bird. Any of these, they're super, super rare. Western tanagers, the piping plovers, the parasitic jagger, I tried one time. Parasitic jaggers love to just be over water. So they're over Lake Superior. All they do is they fly over water. And so I decided I was going to try to get it. And it's in the fall. It comes in the fall. And I rented a boat. And he took me out for like 4 hours trying to find a parasitic jagger. I couldn't, but I will try again sometime. So, yeah, not bad. So the Urban Bird Collective. So while I was doing this project, one of the things that I had heard, especially from my friends who were both either BIPOC or LGBT, hey, you're going to all these amazing places. Can I come out birding with you? And I'm like, of course, yes. But I got asked a lot. And so I knew it had to be more than just me. And so I took 8 of my friends who were either BIPOC or LGBT and pulled them together, and they were pretty good birders, but more importantly, they knew how to hold welcoming and inclusive spaces. And so we started the Urban Bird Collective, started with 8 leaders. 6 years later, I have over 40 leaders, all who identify as BIPOC or LGBT. What's really cool is that they're majority BIPOC and majority LGBT. And we hold welcoming and inclusive spaces that center those two communities, but everybody is welcome. We hold about 80 events a year, either walks, we do biking and birding, we do kayaking and birding, we bird all year round. And so it's a pretty cool organization. And like I said, we really want to create welcoming and inclusive spaces for those two communities. We want to increase people's birding ID skills, but more importantly, we want people to be outside and get the benefits of being outside. And then we want them to be active stewards of the habitats that we want to save and or create. Again, we do this, through our leaders. We want to respect the environments that we're going out in, so we want to make sure that we're always protecting them. We work with other organizations to, we might do bird surveys for other organizations or do bio-blitzes. So bio-blitzes are where they're counting every living thing that might be in a particular area. So we'll support them. And we just want people to be out there and be community science and scientists and care for their spaces. Successes that we've had in the 6 short years, but it seems like longer. Like I said, we have 40 leaders. We host about 80 events. We do what's called a winter bird count. So it's called the Christmas bird count nationally. And it's an active community science project that has been going on for over 125 years. And they count on a particular 3-week period. They will count all the birds all over the world. We, the Urban Bird Collective, just our leaders alone will put 700 hours in that 3-week period. And then we also include an additional 100 volunteers to help us count the birds. Again, we do bio-blitzes and bird surveys. We help monitor chimney swifts. So chimney swifts are one of those birds that are endangered. And one, because they're losing their habitat, which are chimneys. One, they're either buildings are being torn down or houses or buildings are capping their chimneys. So we're trying to figure out how do we educate people about that. And then we have about 800 people join us at our events each year. Why birding is better than American politics. On a bird, the right wing and left wing work together to lift up the center. We'll just leave it at that. What I would say, when we talk about sustainability, climate change, protecting our environments, control what you can, bring it close to home. What can you control? We need everyone working on these issues. And I say, especially those who are impacted. So especially BIPOC communities, where a lot of the environmental injustices are happening, where things are being dumped on. We need to engage those communities, create the community you want. I think that's really important. And then I shouldn't say I think. I think we can be determined and be kind at the same time. So those two things. And I'm going to open it up to questions. So thanks for having me.
How were not of all places?
I just do. Just because they're so special. It's easier with the more rare birds. But I'll do it with cardinals. There's a few cardinals. I'm like, oh yeah, I took it at that place or that place. But the special birds, you just know, and I'll. Even the boreal owl, I'll just always know that time of year or that place. And I'm just going to remember I saw that boreal owl in that tree, and I'll always be looking for it. I'll go back and look for those birds. Mm-hmm.
Is there a section of the urban bird collective here in River Falls or nearby?
No, but there could be. Actually, what's really, I'm super excited. We're potentially going to be expanding to Duluth, to the North Shore area. And one of the reasons is because one of our leaders just moved up there. So it's a great opportunity for us. And we have partner organizations. So one of the things I forgot to mention was that we partner with about 20 organizations. And in Duluth, we already have partner organizations. So all that to say is, if there are people who are super interested in certain places, we're going to figure out Duluth is our pilot, and then we'll go from there.
Do you want to have a library with sight or sound?
Yeah. Sound, a lot of times you're hearing them, and then you know what you're looking for. And I've been doing it for 25 years. So once I hear it, then I'm like, okay, now I know what I'm looking for. So I know where to look. Is it going to be high? Is it going to be, behind the tree? Is it going to be on the ground? When I started birding, there was no iPhone. So all I had was a book. And then as phones came out, Shazam. So Shazam, they had Shazam for music. And I was thinking, because every spring I'm like, God, what is that call? And then I would, get back into, the rhythm. But I was like, oh man, they need to do a Shazam for birds. And now they do. So if you don't all know, Merlin is that thing where you just turn it on and it'll tell you what you're hearing. What I try not to do is to use Merlin too much, because I really want to be really good at hearing it. I just want to go outside and oh yeah, I can hear that. And oh yeah, it's that. So I usually hear them first. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
Huge applause to hawks, eagles, falcon, not really small birds, but
They're all eaten by the hawks. No, Cannon Falls is a great area. So one of the places that I like to go to is Lake Billsby, down by Cannon Falls, and then the Cannon Falls River. They hold a lot of the very special warblers. So cerulean warblers down in that area. Great birding area. Yeah.
Is the location determined
by surveys or by just projected change in environment?
I'm not, so, projected change, I think would probably be the answer. And again, National Audubon is the ones that did the classifications.
Where find info about those? Like you mentioned that when you're
The winter bird count?
like volunteer
Yeah. Are you in Wisconsin?
during fall.
During the winter, yeah. So there are, like I said, there's winter bird counts, and it's each count is a 15-mile radius. So in Minnesota, there's probably like 50 or more different radiuses. So it's probably something similar in Wisconsin. And in Minnesota, we have one coordinator that coordinates all the circles. And I'm sure there's a coordinator in Wisconsin. So I would just look up like the Christmas bird count, Wisconsin. And then you'll see something that's in this area. There might be a circle that's right around this area.
Do you recommend, or I heard you mention a couple times that someone told me about butterflies at this place. Is there a bird listserv? I remember way back in the day.
Yeah.
Listserv, when you get inundated on this else.
Yeah. Ebert.
There's this bird at this.
It's called Ebert. And it's run by Cornell. And it's really everybody who's out there birding puts in the information, and then that's how you get your, like, oh, they saw this here or they saw this there, and they will give you some directions. So I get it all the time. Yep, it's regional. So you can put, do you want it within your like community? Do you want it within the state? And it's all over the country. It's all over the world probably, because it's run by Cornell. And you can decide, do you want to get it daily? Do you want to get it hourly? Do you want to get it weekly? And then what I use it too for is like, if I'm going to go out and I'm going to go to this particular park, I'm going to go to eBird and I'm going to see what's being seen at that park. And then it kind of gives you a heads up, and you can kind of keep an eye out.
So as just an individual, what can I do to help all these birds
Yeah.
that are flown?
Yeah.
And they disappear.
Yeah. Something that I haven't been doing is repeating questions. So the question was, what can I do about all these birds that are threatened? It's there's a lot of really great organizations that are watching these birds and trying to protect them, creating habitat, or protecting the habitats. One of the things that I appreciate about there isn't, so Audubon National is they create flyways. So they're very strategic about where they're putting their resources. And so they're protecting the flyways that these birds are migrating through. I don't want to get into politics, but yeah, you have to think about what is happening, that, policies are being, the Endangered Species Act is being threatened. And that's the one thing that's been sort of helping, like we've been making progress. And now it's like, nah, we don't need that. So, we really have to think about those things. The other thing, there's other things, but like bird strikes are on glass windows on buildings are one of the biggest things that kill birds. There was a building in Chicago that I think it was like 2,000 warblers. I think it was even a particular warbler who hit this building, and all 2,000 just died. So trying to get protective glass is one of the ways that we can do that. And that's city councils that are passing those policies and saying, if you have new construction or whatever, you got to have protective glass. So, yeah.
There's a question online. Can you please share how people can engage in citizen science through UBC?
Yeah. So UBC, like I said, works with a lot of organizations. And so we'll take our volunteers and support them, whether it's bird surveys or the bio blitzes. I anticipate that we'll be doing more. citizen science projects. So working with St. Paul Audubon or Land of Lakes Audubon, who are working on these things. So community science, one of the big things that we're doing is trying to identify where these chimney swifts are actually roosting. And so that's a big community science project that we would love to have more people be a part of. I hear chimney swifts flying all the time. Whenever I bike a lot, so I'm hearing them. The problem is we don't know where they're going because they can fly for like a mile in any distance. And then all of a sudden at dusk, they go into the chimney. We got to identify those chimneys. So that's a great community science opportunity. And then the winter bird count, like I said, we put in 700 hours, but we also recruit about another 100 volunteers, and that's in the winter. People are like, you bird in the winter? It's awesome. Birding in the winter, you just have to have the right clothes on, and the birds are out there and there's no leaves, so it's easier to find them. Yeah.
This summer we had like a flock of merlins
Yeah.
in River Falls, or in here, and I think it's a forest, like a northern forest machine.
Mhm.
Now, are they subject to like eruptions and changes in like normal patterns, or do you know why, like, so,
Yeah, I have the only time I think like I would think of a flock of merlins would be like during migration, but you've seen the flock during the summer. Maybe. Yeah. So I've never seen that. I've, maybe seen 3 at a time merlins, but yeah, so I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
is there any specific method that's useful for working towards more consistent visual or audible identification of birds, or is it just more of a experience kind of thing?
It's really experience. I was very lucky when I first started birding. Like I said, I went out with people who were really good birders. So they taught me a lot. One, they taught me, again, the habitats. What was really great was associating, like once I heard them, but then actually seeing them and connecting them. The other thing that really helped me along the way was the bird photography. I don't consider myself like a photographer that, I'm doing it for artistic purposes. I do it for documentation. Like I want people to see and enjoy what I'm seeing, and then hopefully that they'll protect, the birds as well. But I love being able to download the photos and just see different angles of the birds and see the back that I've never seen before or whatever. And so it just lands in me, and it's another way for me to learn. I'm constantly learning. And birds don't have just one bird call. They have many, like some of them have 1,000 different bird calls. I've been birding for over 25 years, and it was a couple years ago, I'd heard this new call, and I'm just like, what is that? And it was a veery. And I knew the typical call of a veery, but I didn't know this call. And it's like, so I'm just constantly learning as I go. Yeah.
How would you have you noticed any changes in the migration with climate change that's coming over?
Yeah, for sure. One, less birds. I mean, and I hear it all the time, that there are less birds. And then I really worry about especially in the spring, like birds coming too soon. Just the different, or coming. So yes, for climate change. So for example, if it gets too warm and then all of a sudden the certain flowers are blooming that are the food sources for those birds, and then we get a snowfall. And then when the birds come, there's no food source for them. So there's all those things that are, hazards for them. Yeah. No more questions. I appreciate you all having me. Yeah.